You're listening to the Patriot Nation Podcast.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation Podcast. Of course, Patriot Nation Podcast brought to you by FanDuel, the official wagering partner of CLNS Media. Make sure you sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston. Matt, it's your boy Pat Lane here with Matt St. Jean. Of course, like we all know this, I guess, by now, right? But second preseason game, and there was a lot going on, kind of a lot to take away, and then we kind of get to see the dark side of the dark side of football, the side that we don't really like to talk about as much. And you know, the game ends early because of the Isaiah Bolden injury, and it's a tough thing to see, tough thing to watch. But I think ultimately, everyone involved made the right decision.
Yeah, and I was happy to see the way that the teams handled it. I think we saw after Damar Hamlin last year, I think teams kind of took it upon themselves to figure out what they would do in any kind of situation like that. And I love Matthew Slater calling out Bill Belichick for being the one to initiate calling the game. You know, yet 2 days of joint practices that were physical with fights, and you're in the fourth quarter of a preseason game against that same opponent. These coaches have, seen what they needed to see from the guys that are out there. The sample size is pretty large. You've seen a lot of plays. You know how these teams go. It's fourth quarter.
Right.
No need to risk more injury. And I don't know. It's just a game. And in this case, a game that really doesn't matter.
Well, and I think that's what it comes down to. I think that, if this were a regular season game, I think they probably would have kept playing. But like you said,
100%.
they had 2 days of joint practices. They had all this stuff. Now you're sitting there saying, what are we doing? We're going to stick out, Trace McSorley out there with all these, why are we doing that? It doesn't make any sense. Just end the stupid game right now. It's just not worth it, So I think they made the right decision. And, Slater said a lot of stuff about Belichick and talking about, Bill during that time. But he said, with his 16 years he's been playing for the Patriots, he said that's one of his proudest moments, to be a Patriot and to be playing for Bill Belichick. And I thought that was, Slater's an emotional guy anyways, kind of wears his heart on his sleeve, which I liked, which we always love from Slater anyways. But to hear him talk about Belichick that way, and to hear that Belichick was really one that initiated, that said, we don't need to be here. What are we doing? And he mentioned it, and a few other players on the team mentioned it, that they were a little rattled when that happened, and I think rightfully so. And they always are rattled, but it's always okay. All right, well, we got to do, it's our job and we got to get back to it. And it's at this point, it just doesn't really matter.
Exactly. Yeah. And obviously we're thinking of Isaiah Bolden, hoping he's doing all right. And they said feeling in his extremities, taken to the hospital there. That's priority one right now, is make sure he's good. It sounds like, early signs were as good as you could probably hope for in a situation like this. And abundance of caution, you make sure he's good. These teams have the money to make sure these guys get the best medical attention they're going to get. And that's what he's going to get. And, we're going to talk about the game here, but also the player. It's a short turnaround. It's Saturday. They're back at joint practices on Tuesday, playing on Friday. It's a short preseason week, very physical preseason week. So mentally, you got to worry about your teammate and what's going on with him, but also turn around and figure out, how do I, get back on a football field, recover, get myself healthy, so we can figure out these next couple days.
Right. No, 100%. And so we'll see what happens there. So let's get into the game. Let's get into the game, and we'll talk about it. I think we'll start. We'll start on the offensive side of the ball. And look, I understand the offensive line was a disaster. I get it. I know they were terrible. I know. Okay. But I did think you saw some promising things out of the young guys. I thought Mafi gave up pressure on the Kendrick Bourne catch across the middle. That throw ended up sailing because Mafi missed a stunt, and Mac had pressure right in his face. And so, that of course was a bad play by him. City So got driven back into Mac Jones, which allowed a sack. Of course, bad play, right, by him. But I thought overall, between So and Mafi, and then Jake Matthews, who came in and played center after James Ferentz took over for David Andrews,
Yeah.
I thought the three of those guys looked pretty good, right? I thought they looked pretty good.
Well, I think the most important thing is they look better than they did last week.
Right.
And that's really what you're asking for at this point in the process. Like, I don't know how much those guys are going to play this year. We're still waiting on the status of Cole Strange and Michael Onwenu, which I think there was discussion this week about both of those guys probably being back for week 1, or that's kind of the goal here, is to get them back for week 1. But like, I don't know. When Mac Jones was out there and like that offensive line, the top unit right now, it's not great. That's probably average in the NFL right now. I didn't think it was awful. I thought it was okay. And if So can, improve a little bit week by week, and Mafi can improve a little bit week by week, it's passable. You're going to be able to run your offense. You're going to be able to figure some stuff out. Obviously, they scored. It was a short field, but they did score with that group. So, yeah, I mean, the offensive line was good enough that they could run the plays they wanted to run for the most part. And that is an improvement on a significant chunk of the NFL right there.
I agree. And look, would I like to see someone else? And people are mentioning, DJ Fluker and Jason Peters talked about how he wanted to play this year. And those guys are possibilities. Those definitely are possibilities for me. But I also think if you're happy with the progression that those guys are making, if you're looking at City So saying, we're happy with his progression, what I think is really fascinating to me is that Riley Reiff looked like he was going to be the starting right tackle. All camp, it looked like Riley Reiff was going to be the starting right tackle. And then today, with Mac Jones out there, right, he's at right guard. And City So's at right tackle. And so now
good at guard.
Well, and that's the thing. I understand Riley Reiff's not necessarily a guard, and I know that Mike Onwenu is hopefully going to be back. But maybe they're looking at it saying, City So's look pretty good at right tackle, and maybe Riley Reiff looks good at right guard. And if he all of a sudden looks good at right guard, well, if Onwenu, and we talked about this last week, I'm concerned that Onwenu's not going to be ready for the start of the season. He hasn't even stepped onto the practice field in pads yet. So it's going to take some time ramping up, getting him back into game shape. I think throwing him out there, week 1 with no practice time would be a huge mistake.
Yeah, it's an Eagles front seven too.
Right.
Well, and I think this is the tough thing right now. They got speed rushers over there at Philly too. Yeah. And whether it's Riley Reiff, City So, or Onwenu, who they put at right tackle, whoever that is going to have a hard time anyway. And I think you're just the answer at this point because you don't have a great option there. And look at the whole offseason. There wasn't going to be a great option available without giving up something really significant.
Correct.
Your answer is going to be to ship and to run to the other side of the field or to run right at that side. So they can't put their speed rushers over there. And if they got undersized guys, you run at them or you pass in the other direction or you roll Mac out or you have RPOs. That's how you beat it, and you scheme around it so that you can if you have one weak link on the offensive line, especially if it's like at tackle and it's like kind of passable, you can scheme around that to some degree and make it work. Especially like if this is what it looks like week 1, if this is the year, and let's say Cole Strange comes back in at left guard, but So is still at right tackle, you can make that work for like weeks 1 and 2. And by week 3, you hope you're healthy. I think that's fine, and you'll be competitive in both of those games with a chance to win.
I agree. And the other part of it for me is that when I look at what the hell was I just thinking about? There was he was talking about Johnny Lumpkin. Old man. He distracted me by saying put Lumpkin at right tackle, but I realistically though, I think the offensive line is going to be fine. I think they're going to be okay. Now there's also a question of you're going to have cut down day, right? the Bengals are a target that everyone's kind of pointed out. Jonah Williams is not, they signed La'el Collins, right? Was it La'el Collins they signed? Or they traded for, I don't know. They picked up La'el Collins. They have 3 starting tackles at this point, right? If one of those guys doesn't want to be a backup, or if they want to get, if they're looking at it saying, well, we want to get something. Jonah Williams is going to be a free agent at the end of the year. We're not re-signing him. He's not starting. He's a backup for us. We want to get something for him. The Patriots may have to give them something, but maybe it won't be something super significant, and they're willing to do that. Or maybe they're looking at it saying, you know what, we're pretty happy with City So. And people talked about, okay, yeah, City So this and whatever, but like Will Anderson, who was the number 3 pick in the draft and was really good, right? You look at it and say, all right, well, he shut down Will Anderson last week, City So, for the most part.
Yeah, he's pretty good there.
He wasn't that bad, right? And then he played pretty well again tonight. And again, it wasn't perfect, but he's getting better. And I think you're looking at it saying, like, you know what? Would we be okay dealing with this rookie at right tackle? Like, I think we would. And again, like you said, if left tackle's okay, if Trent Brown's okay, and if Cole Strange is okay, and David Andrews is okay, and Mike Onwenu is okay, you can deal with a little bit of a question mark at right tackle because there's only one guy you have to worry about.
You can handle that. And the other thing is, I think the other question this obviously opens up is like, what do they do when Onwenu comes back? Because he's played tackle before, and it's basically, I think you got 3 possibilities here. Onwenu comes back, he goes right back to right guard. Riley Reef kicks right back out to tackle where they signed him, and you go back to what the plan was this offseason. Or you're going to put Onwenu back in at guard, but they like what they've seen from So, and I think Reef is a little bit washed, not quick enough to play on the outside. Right. Or they think Reef is a really good guard, and they're going to put Onwenu back at tackle, and they're going to have that be what they go with on the right side. I think all 3 of those are possibilities here. And quite frankly, like, depending on what the media access level is at practice and when it comes back, we might not really know until they take the field week 1 on September 10th. Like, it's So I feel better now than I did last week. I think they have enough bodies there to make something passable work to get the offense going. And that's probably all they're going to need.
Well, I agree with you. And to me, the biggest part of it for me is that when I look at it, I say the offensive line is in better shape than I think we thought they were last week. And again, it's not perfect. And I know it didn't look great tonight. I understand that. But I do think that they're trending up, which is a good thing. And I think that, and I know people are nervous, and I totally get it. I totally get it that people are nervous. But I do think they're going to have a good enough offensive line. Is it going to be the Detroit Lions offensive line or the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line of last year? No, it's not. They're not going to have a dominant offensive line this year. But can they be a good offensive line? A decent, I think that's good enough for the Patriots to be fine. And again, you don't have to dominate other teams. You're going to struggle against Philly because everyone struggles against Philly, right? So, but
we're just in the Super Bowl.
Right. And that's what I'm saying, And so I do think like Zeke helps with that. Having a back that can, and Ramondre is good at blitz pickup too, but having a back that can really help, I think really helps your offensive line too. So, which is good.
I agree. And the RPOs help because
sure do.
You're basically, and anything like that, you're basically taking a defender and taking them out of the play in a way that you're not blocking them to take them out of the play. That's not how you're doing it. It just makes it a little bit easier on your offensive line to figure that out. And Matt got pressured a little bit on one of the RPOs today, that slant to Bourne. But like that play, I thought was perfect. That's the example of what this should look like in the offense.
Exactly.
Mac reads the RPO really well. He sells the handoff, and even though he's under pressure, he realizes they're coming to my face and pull the ball back out and get the ball out on the slant where it's open. Bourne makes the catch. He pick up the first down. He's able to get some yards after the catch. That's putting Mac in a position to succeed. Mac making a really nice throw, Bourne making it happen, and the offensive line doing enough to allow it to happen. Now, obviously, they ran a similar play later, and it almost ended up in a pick because the defense read it and sat underneath the slant. And that's where I think, you game plan. As the season goes along, you're going to put stuff in. So you're not just running the same play over and over.
Right.
So we'll see, how that evolves. But that first drive from the offense in particular, I felt pretty good about.
I agree. So let's switch over to wide receiver, because that's the other battle I think that we're looking for. Pop Douglas played a little bit with Mac Jones tonight, had a few catches, including a third down catch. And that swing pass to me was almost more indicative of what you're going to see from him because of his shiftiness and his ability to get away from tacklers. That's something that I don't think a lot of guys on the Patriots possess. And so I was happy to see that from him. And then, of course, Kayshon Boutte, takes a slant pass and goes to the house. And I know that the safety made a bad play, over pursuit. I get it, but it looked great. It looked great. It was a great play by him. And I think that Boutte is a guy, for me, where I look at it and say, he's playing himself into a position on this team. He's playing himself into a roster spot on this team. And now the question becomes, do you keep 6 wide receivers, or do you trade one of those guys? I know KB is the target that everyone talks about trading away. Mac Jones loves him some KB.
He started tonight and looked very good. I don't
right.
All of the KB trade noises because he didn't play well last year.
Right.
But you're not going to trade him at this point in the process. He looks good and he's playing well and he's a team leader. He's honestly, he's a very good wide receiver 3 when you look around the rest of the league. He's, especially if he can get back to what he did 2 years ago. I don't think it's worth trading him. And I think the real question here, I think we assume that they're going to have 8 pass catchers of some kind between wide receiver and tight end. And I'm not including Matthew Slater in that. So what the question basically becomes is, do you want to keep Kayshon Boutte, or do you want to keep Matt Sokol or Anthony Ferkser, guys like that? And I thought the 2 of those guys were fine today, Sokol and Ferkser, but I think they're the kind of guys who you can put on the practice squad and you're not going to have an issue with that at all. I don't think anybody's rushing out to claim them.
Agreed.
And I thought Boutte made enough plays tonight and was open consistently enough that you say, all right, he's worth that 6th roster spot at receiver, even if he's not going to play that much. He's probably not going to be active on game days a whole lot this season unless guys get banged up. But I think you'd rather have him there. And I think he's also shown enough that you'd be a little bit wary of putting him through waivers. Also, I don't know if you had seen this, Devon Godshaw literally just tweeted this out. Somebody shared the video of Boutte's touchdown. Ryan Clark said, if Kayshon Boutte finds his stride in New England, he will be the steal of the draft, showed top 10 talent at times early throughout his time in Baton Rouge. Godshaw retweeted that and just said, agreed. So a little shout out from inside the room there.
Yeah, well, think about the guy that he was at the beginning of his time at LSU. I mean, he still does he still have the record, I believe, for receiving yards in a game?
Something like that.
It was 300 something yards. I mean, it's outrageous. And you think about all the guys that went there, he reached 50. I think they said 50 catches. I think they said he reached 50 catches faster than any of the wide receivers recently.
Odell and I
mean, that's outrageous. Chase. Jefferson, Chase, and Odell, and he had 50 catches in less games than all those guys. So, that's the type of guy you're talking about. And is he going to be those guys? No. I mean, maybe, but I'm not saying he's going to be. But he at least is flashing that ability to be a primetime player, to be a really good player. And if that's the case, you can't let that guy just walk away. Now, if you had seen nothing from him in training camp and you had seen nothing from him in preseason, then you'd sit there and say, all right, the kid doesn't have it. We'll cut him. Maybe he'll end up in the practice squad if someone else claims him. But at this point now, he's making plays and he's consistently doing it. Of course, he had the touchdown tonight. That's great. But it's not just that. He's been doing it in practice now for the last 2 weeks in a row. And if he continues to impress in practice and continues to play that way, how are you going to cut the guy? He can't. And so,
He's like, he looks solid. Like, even if he isn't some kind of a playmaker, he's still very good route runner. He's very good after the catch, and he's like, and we saw, I think, some blocking from him at points tonight, which we
Yeah.
also saw from Kendrick Bourne. Shout out to him. He had a big block on Ramondre Stevenson's run. But the Booty, just like, he does enough of the fundamentals well that as long as he's like bought in and doing all the stuff that you want to do, he's won me over in that regard. He's shown he's an NFL caliber athlete, and with all of that, it's like, all right. I mean, even if he's never explosive, even if he's never more than like a wide receiver 3, in 2 years he could be what Kendrick Bourne is now,
Right.
that type of guy. And it's like, all right, well, if you got that from a 6th round pick on a rookie deal, yeah, that makes that
pretty
when
good.
Bourne walks, that you have the next guy up and you feel pretty good about it. And that's nice. And I thought his counterpart in the draft there, Pop Douglas, he didn't play much, but he popped when he did.
Yeah. Pun intended.
Oh yeah. I'm going to be
and then
abusing that this year. Apologies in advance.
And then Val says, that Thornton starts the season on IR. And I agree that Thornton probably does start the season on IR, but here's the question. If Thornton goes on the IR before the season, that means he's done for the season. If Thornton wants to start the season on IR and come off, he's going to have to make the initial 53-man roster, which means you're going to be keeping 8 wide receivers and then also Matthew Slater. Matthew Slater, I guess, is a wide receiver, but whatever, and so that's the thing is that you're going to be keeping 8 wide receivers. So you're going to have to cut someone else. Now that guy
you're saying 8 pass catchers, right? The wide receivers and the tight ends. If you're keeping 8.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry. 6. Yeah, you're right.
Okay. Trying to make sure we weren't.
No. Yeah.
Just assuming Trey Nixon was on.
I had Trey Nixon. That's my guy. He's done for the year. That sucks.
Yeah.
You never want to see a guy get hurt, but might end up working out in his favor. He ends up on the team the rest of the year on IR and gets paid. So, but anyways, the point here is that, are you going to keep this guy? You're not cutting Tyquan Thornton, right? Now people can, dislike Tyquan Thornton all they want. You're not cutting that guy. It's insane. And so he's going to be on the roster. If Douglas and Booty are both going to be on the roster as well, and you're not trading Parker or Juju or Bourne, which you shouldn't, then you got 6 guys. There's nothing you can do about it. And so unless Thornton's injury is significantly worse than we thought and has to be out for the year, well, then that's a different story, right? And so, but maybe you only keep a few running backs. Look, and we're going to talk about running backs. We have to go to our sponsor, and then we'll come back and talk about the running backs. But you're going to have to do that, that roster calculus a little bit, right? And figure out who am I going to take off the roster, pass them through waivers, and hope I get them back. Because I think at this point you have to keep all 6 of those guys at least on the initial 53, even if you end up putting one of them on IR to start the year.
Yeah, and that's before you just. I'm putting this out there. I think it was Christopher Price reported, like, during the game or right before the game. Sources were saying that Tyquan Thornton's injury is considered week to week, and that's like, if he's week to week, we're 3 weeks from the opener right now. Like, he's not. He's probably healthy by then if he actually recovers, and like, this isn't like it's been. And like, whether or not he can stay healthy, I think, is a question, because this is the 3rd time he's been sidelined due to injury, and we haven't even started his 2nd regular season yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think there's a good chance he'll be at least somewhat healthy by opening day, and that's not a consideration here. So I think 2 tight ends, 6 wide receivers is probably the way that breaks down.
I think so. I agree. Yeah. All right. Word from our sponsor, and then we'll be back. We're going to be talking about running backs, and we're going to get into the defense a little bit too.
Oh, yeah.
Football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long. Because right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. You can use your bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/Boston. 21 plus and present in Massachusetts. First online real money wager only. $10 deposit required. Refund issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days. Restrictions apply. Max bonus $50 unless specified otherwise. See terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Hope is here. Gambling helpline ma.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Play it smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com or call 1-800-GAM-1234.
All right, so we're back. We are going to be talking about running backs as promised. So look,
before we talk about running backs, I have a question for you here.
Sure.
Did we talk about Mac Jones at all on this? And how he looked? Because we talked the offensive line.
Yeah,
He
looked good. I mean, he looked good, I thought. I know he missed. He missed.
You think about the seam route to Henry?
Yeah, he missed the Henry route. The question that I have with the Henry route is, did he really miss the throw, or was it a miscommunication? Because it seemed to me that Henry, as soon as the play ended, was like, hey, that one was on me. My bad about that.
And he threw like an extra hitch in there as he was running, and I think he just tried to. Like, I went back and watched it a couple of times. I think he just tried. He overthought separating from the defender there and didn't just run to space. So we'll see how that looks. But I thought even that first series, with the motions in the offense, it looked like Mac was really confident in what was going on, and then he sensed pressure. Was able to move around in the pocket to extend plays and create stuff. And we didn't see that last year.
No, and he had that throw to Parker that I just thought Parker lost it for a bit. I think that he didn't necessarily he didn't accelerate at the end there, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. So.
I thought that's the best Mac that's obviously a small sample size, but the best Mac we've seen since 2021.
I agree. And I think, and old man mom says too, like, if that wasn't preseason, that, then he'd be right. Then he would die for that, right? Lay out for it. So,
and this also, they're not scheming stuff up for the Packers here. They're just running their stuff. So like, we'll see when they start mixing plays in where they're really trying to attack a defense and do some different stuff. So this tells me that the base of the offense looks good and that all the guys know what they're doing in it.
Yeah, I agree. And so look, I mean, ultimately, Mac wasn't incredible, right? I mean, he was like 6 for 9 for 52 yards or something like that. Like he didn't light the world on fire, but that's okay. It's all right. It's not a big deal. Like it doesn't, those things don't matter. And I think, I think that, they're going to get better over time. So I appreciate
that.
Yeah.
Well, he was the point guard. He did what he was asked.
Exactly. And I think, they're miles, marathons ahead of where they were this time last year. So just that is good to see. And so, they're moving forward. So by the way, shout out Jordan saying we're his favorite podcast. Appreciate you, Jordan. Thanks for being here. All right, running back. Let's get to running back because we're going to get through this. We have JJ Taylor, of course, looked great. Okay, and I know you think JJ Taylor should be on the team. I know other people do think.
Possibly.
I know. I think I know. Other people talk about JJ Taylor, and he has that kind of shiftiness that the other running backs don't for the Patriots, and I agree with that. JJ Taylor, I'm bringing it back a little bit. I'm bringing it back. Okay, if you don't know who this guy is, go look him up. But JJ Taylor to me is the 21st century version, not 21st century. That's incorrect. The 2020s version of Bam Childress. So that's who he is to me, and I think like that's not a slight on him. I'm not trying to say he stinks, but he's a really good player in the preseason. You get to the regular season, and he just can't really do it in the regular season.
Yeah. See, I think the tough thing when evaluating the running back room right now is that if you just went on, seniority and contract status and things like that, it's going to be Ramondre, who still looks fantastic, Ezekiel Elliott, and then Pierre Strong and Ty Montgomery. Well, Strong and Montgomery are hurt. And
Right.
J.J. Taylor and Kevin Harris, I think, both looked better tonight. And, I don't know. It's tough to figure out what's going to happen, but availability matters. Montgomery's been hurt a ton. I thought Kevin Harris, his pass protection looked better today. He's holding onto the ball. He's able to pick up what's blocked for him. And I don't know who's going to end up making this roster. If they're all healthy, I think it might end up just being Strong and Harris as running backs 3 and 4, and Montgomery goes, because I think if Booty's on this roster, that also Hurt and Douglas, both of those guys being on, hurts Montgomery's stock and his ability to be on the roster, because they're all kind of slot weapons. So you put it all together, and it's just a really confusing picture where I think of those 4 guys, any 1 to 3 of them could be on the roster, and it wouldn't surprise me.
Right. And you're right about that. I mean, Ty Montgomery scares me because he just can't stay healthy. And, that's obviously something to consider. I don't know if Pierre Strong makes the roster. And even if he does, I don't know if he has a big impact. He has a ton of speed. He has more speed than anyone else in the room. But ultimately, if he doesn't have the vision, it doesn't matter. That's just so.
And
so I don't know.
And it's tough to evaluate because Strong plays special teams too, and that'll factor into it. But it's so hard to evaluate when the guys aren't on the field. And if the question is, of those guys, which guys have done the most in training camp and the preseason, the answer is that J.J. Taylor and Kevin Harris are the 2 guys making the team. Is that the way it's going to pan out? Probably not, but it's kind of also hard to say anything but that until we see guys, in pads playing football.
Right. I agree. All right, let's flip over the defense, and I'd like to start in the secondary. And someone mentioned it already, and I don't know who it was, but I'm not going to scroll back. But Jalen Mills was fantastic tonight, and I think he's looked fantastic. He looked really good in the first preseason game as well. You can tell how comfortable he is back there at safety. He flies up and hits dudes. It's great, and I love seeing him fly around. He is proving that he deserves to be part of this team, and I think that maybe he could play corner a little bit, but I think he's mostly going to be a safety. Old man mom says he's MVP the preseason. I think he's probably right about that, right? It's just he's looked that good at safety so far. And
that's where he was at his best with the Eagles too.
Correct. Yep. And so, open them up a little bit. You don't have to worry about it. And then you kind of, go from there. And I think that's a good sign for the Patriots. They have a lot of safeties. I think Josh Bledsoe, it's pretty safe to say he's not going to make the team at this point. So, they do have a lot of safeties, but Mills isn't just a safety. He can also cover like a corner at times. So that helps you as well.
He can be your nickel back. I think he can at points take over that Miles Bryant role of a slot defender, especially when he's such a good run defender. If there's any big slots out there, I think about when they play the Bills are going to have their 2 tight end stuff this year with Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. And it's all right, they're putting one of those guys in the slot. You can have Mills go over there or Duggar, any of these safeties, put literally any one of them there. And you're confident with their run defending ability from that spot and their ability to cover the guy in man if needed. I thought he looked good. Yeah. I thought it was interesting. We didn't see Marcus Jones tonight in the secondary. Miles Bryant was your essentially starting third corner, depending on personnel groups, and he looked good. He made some plays out there. I thought he looked better than he did last year. I think he's growing and
he will not go away.
I think he won't go away. I think Miles Bryant is as good as any 5th cornerback on a roster is in the NFL. Right. Probably he might be the best 5th corner in the NFL. Yes. And quite honestly, when you have, the passing offenses in the division that the Patriots having some depth there. I don't want Miles Bryant matched up one-on-one with Garrett Wilson, but if it's, whatever's left of Randall Cobb when you're playing the Jets, I'm not quite as worried about that.
Right. I agree. So,
Yeah.
and I think Marcus Jones, to Val's point here, Marcus Jones has been beat at corner because he is small, but when he's going against not super tall guys, you're gonna be just fine, right? Don't put
Yeah.
against T. Higgins. Like that's not really,
Well, I think the issue that Marcus Jones has right now is that most of his experience in college was as an outside corner because all of the corners that they had at Houston were small, so he just played outside. And he has the skill set of an outside corner with the height of a slot corner. So I
Right.
think he's had issues with some of just like the hip speed and transitioning to cover inside and outside at the same time from the slot. But like when you play Miami and they just got small, fast guys everywhere on the field, you're not worried about it. You're not putting him against AJ Brown outside. But if there's small receivers outside, I really like that. I think Marcus Jones can play zone coverage on the outside too, no matter the receiver.
Yeah. And that's the thing, and by the way, Christian Gonzalez, it got called for that terrible defensive pass interference. But like, I thought, here's a guy that's been talked about how he's not aggressive and doesn't play hard and doesn't tackle. And he's up there making plays. Now, I know he's not playing against first string. I know that like it's not all the best players. I get that. But like he had no problem throwing his body around, going in for hits and tackling guys. I just thought that yeah, he did. And so that to me, that's what I want to see.
Yeah. And I thought,
I was happy about that.
They're giving him a lot of play out there too, which I like. He's getting used to it. I don't know. He's not like Sauce Gardner from day one, but I think Christian Gonzalez looks very, very good out there. And I'm excited. I've seen enough that I'm just ready to get to the regular season and see how he looks. They're not playing elite receivers here. The Patriots did release a short little statement here, an update on Isaiah Bolden, by the way. I'm reading this from Mike Hadlick on Twitter. Shout out to him. Quote, cornerback Isaiah Bolden will be held overnight at a local hospital in Green Bay for observation. To set expectations, we plan to provide an update on his condition by 8 a.m. on Sunday. So in the morning, we'll have an update. And I think that's good that they got a short timetable there for letting us know. I like that it's like, hey, here's the expectations, here's the timetable, here's when we're going to provide you more info. That's nice. So obviously wishing him well there in the secondary. We want to talk about the front seven too.
So one other play with Gonzalez that I saw that I liked a lot, and it ended up being a completion, so it didn't really matter. I think it was a cover 2, and I'm not 100%. It was a cover 2, but I'm pretty sure it was just on the way the technique was. Bolden was kind of playing, so they ran a flat route and they ran a kind of a corner route, and it may have been an out because I'm not watching the all 22. I'm not sure, but he stayed with the flat route. And then after he stayed with the flat route, the throw ends up going to that corner route, whichever one it was. I'm not sure. Either way, before the ball is thrown, he turns around and sprints to the corner. Now, it was a nice throw by Love, and so it ended up being a completion. But he's reading the guy, reading the eyes of the quarterback, and comes off of his guy to get to that throw. Now, the throw was a good throw, so it was fine. But, that's one of those things where I look at it and just think like, hey, there's a guy that's learning, that knows what he's doing, that sees that. If that's a bad throw, if he hangs that throw, it's a pick by Gonzalez. It wasn't, but that's the type of thing that I like to see. And from a young corner who's still out there learning, I like to see things like that.
Yeah, and you're not like he's not going to stop every single passing attempt in his direction. Sometimes the ball's going to get there. You can't cover every single thing. So if you hit the guys hard at the times when they do catch it on you, that's pretty much all you can ask for. And as long as you're not giving up too many catches.
I agree.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I thought he looked better. He looks more comfortable. Still playing a lot of special teams, which I think is really interesting that they're using him as a gunner. I thought they might have been doing it last week just to get him into the game, to get him adjusted, to get him more physical. Now I think they just, like his speed and want him on the field a lot because he can be a playmaker.
Yeah, that makes sense. And give him some reps because, he's a young kid. I mean, just turned 21 in June. You know what I mean? Like, so get him out there, get him some reps and kind of see what he can do. I don't know who this guy's talking about defensive forward. I don't really know what's happening, but, so, nevertheless, let's get to the front seven. Want to get to the front seven? Sam Roberts. Sorry, bro. You're out of a job. That's just not, you can't take a 50-yard penalty like that, man. Like, what the hell was that? And the illegal hands to the face, I don't know. I didn't really see illegal hands to the face, but it doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter. Like,
when you're a fringe roster guy,
you can't do that. You can't. That's crazy to me. So that's the end of that. See you later, Sam Roberts. Yeah. But I thought the front seven overall struggled big time against the run. Mm-hmm. I thought Penny Jennings played really well against the run, but I thought the rest of the people really didn't, to be honest with you.
Yeah, there was a play in there where the Packers broke off a pretty significant run, and I was like, oh man, like, I guess the backups aren't that good. And I went back and looked, and it was in the direction of Lawrence Guy and Carl Davis. It's like, I don't love that. There's also the touchdown they gave up, which I think it was hard to tell if it was Josh Bledsoe or Josh Uche who lost contain on the play. I think a first viewing would indicate it was Uche, but based on some of the body language after the fact and the way that they were communicating it, it almost seemed more like it was Bledsoe who was responsible for containing an outside runner. I think they're still figuring some of that stuff out. They did have their issues stopping the run. I will say that like the Packers did move the ball on them at points, but then also the second they got one stop at all and the Packers had to throw the ball, things for the most part didn't go very well until the backups came in. Yeah. So it wasn't great. I have some concerns running the ball, and I think that with Philly week 1 is really tough because they run the ball so well, and that's a really bad matchup on that front. So I think we should set expectations and not overreact. You can be a good run defense in the NFL in 2023 and have issues with the Eagles. Like we'll put that out there now. But if you want to beat the Eagles, you're gonna have to take some steps between now and then. And I didn't love like Lawrence Guy looking a little bit older today and Devon Godchaux getting turned around as the nose tackle at points. That's not what we're looking for. Even Carl Davis has been up and down. Like he's just a monster of a man in the middle, and he gets pushed sometimes.
Right. Well, Jerry was saying, it's the backups, but like if Lawrence Guy and Carl Davis and Godchaux aren't starting, who is? Like who's the starting defensive tackle? Like when we're trying to stop the run.
Armour's the only other guy. He's not there to stop the run.
Right. And so that's the thing is like if you're trying to stop the run, those are your defensive run stoppers. Now, the one thing I will say is that this defense has been predicated on having good linebackers forever. The linebackers is where they're struggling. Now, I do think that Jawan Bentley wasn't out there. That makes a difference, right? That to me makes a big difference. And so, not having Jawan Bentley out there, Mac Wilson, famously terrible against the run. Terrible against the run. This is the Mac Wilson that we're used to seeing. He's awful against the run.
Well, he gambles. He basically blitzes on anything, and if he's in the right gap, he's going to blow a guy up. And you go back to the Cleveland days too. He's got some really good plays against the run where he's blowing guys up on the line of scrimmage. But when he whiffs, it's bad. He's very hit or miss, which is fine if the rest of your defense is rock solid against the run. Then he's like an X factor. But they're just not quite that rock solid up front. I guess I think this is the overarching concern for the season too, is that if your regular guys aren't good enough at stopping the run, then that means you're going to have to put in a specialized group of guys to stop the run. And that means, hey, Jalen Mills might have to come off the field, and Adrian Phillips or Jabril Peppers is going to have to come off the field. And your safety, your corners are going to have to come off the field, and we're going to make you put all your heavy guys out there, and they still can't stop us. Or then the second you put the heavy guys out there, we're going to throw over the top of you. That kind of becomes the lone concern. But even then, the run defense had issues, but it wasn't to that level tonight. They were able to get some stops, and the second the Packers tried to throw the ball, things went really poorly for them.
Yeah, no, I agree with. So, it's not all bad, of course, right? But I do think that it didn't look good. It didn't look good. But I think ultimately what it comes down to for the Patriots is that they have some depth. They just don't have a lot of it. And when you get to a situation, just like the offensive line, if there's one guy that's out and you've got 4 starters in there and you get one guy, you're okay. But if you get 3 starters out, you're screwed. Your offensive line is going to be terrible. And it's the same thing with I would look at the defense, right? Where you look at it and say, okay, if 1 or 2 guys out, fine. But take Bentley off the field. You take, Keon White off the field. You take Barmore off the field. You take whatever, right? And now you're like, oh boy, now the guys that we have filling in just can't get the job done, right? And that's probably the same way it is on any team, but I think more so than in the recent past, I feel like that's the case here.
When you go back to last year, their 3 worst games against the run really were the Green Bay, Chicago, and Baltimore games. And either Lawrence Guy or Kyle Duggar was out for one of those. And it's those are in some ways, I think what your 4 best run defenders are probably Godshaw, Guy, Bentley, and Duggar with the way they play.
And Duggar didn't play today, did he? Did Duggar play tonight?
I think he played the first series a couple plays.
And then didn't play the rest of the game.
Yeah, no, I think he played then.
Right.
And they took him out right away because, why would you leave him in? We know what he is.
Yeah.
But, so it's we'll see how that looks in the regular season. I'm not concerned yet. I think the only issue I have is that the guys who are there to stop the run are not necessarily good enough at stopping the run when you need to have it.
Yeah.
You don't have Vince Wilfork. You don't have Alan Branch, a guy like that, or a Ted Washington. The guys they have that are that big, which just aren't as good as those guys. And it's tough.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm looking at it kind of saying, all right, well, what are we going to do? Where are these guys going to come from? And I don't know. Do they trade for another linebacker? Do they like the linebackers they have? Calvin Munson's the guy that you have on your, spoiler, you have on your 53-man roster. He's been playing, I think he's picked him off. I pulled him off. But he's close. A fringe guy. He's been playing a ton. He's been on a ton of special teams. He's been playing defense. He's been around. Chris Boards is another one, right? Where
Physical.
But he's not a great linebacker. So, those are the things that we have to worry about. And so it just kind of is what it is. And you look at it and say, all right, well, do we have enough with the guys that are there, right? And how do we feel about those guys? And do we trade for a linebacker? Do we pick up a linebacker? Do we try to, improve that front 7? And I don't know if you really can. I think they're deep on the edges. And then I think what's going to happen is you're going to see some of those edge guys come inside. And then that's where you'll see the help from, I think at least.
Right. Well, I think you also have a lot of depth. I think the issue is if any of the guys are, well-rounded enough or elite enough at one thing to really put you over the top in any particular way. Not a lot of guys who are good, but it feels like the front 7 is made up of really, really, really good role players.
Mm-hmm.
And
outside of Judon, I would say.
Yes. As for Barmore, if he becomes the guy who we think he can become as a defensive tackle, that changes that because he'll be a physical force in the middle and he's already really good against the pass. If he can be good against the run now too, in conjunction with that makes things a lot easier for you. If Keon White, if he is every week when he looks against the Texans, well, yeah, you got a guy who can do that. Josh Uche, I think outside of that one touchdown, looked a lot better against the run tonight. If he's on the field more often, that helps you. Penny Jennings being a better pass rusher helps you. Just adding skill sets for these guys. And again, they're not a bad front 7. We're talking about the difference between being a top 7 defense and a top 3 defense. That's kind of, I feel like, the area where we're discussing. And
Right.
you also look at the schedule and like you get Philly, but after Philly, there's a lot of teams where I'm like, I'm not worried about them running the
I agree.
ball quite the
Yeah, I
same
agree.
way. I don't know if there's another team on the schedule. I think there are some teams that can run the ball.
Nobody in the league can run the ball like Philly can run the ball. You know what I mean? And
the only other team's Baltimore.
Right.
And maybe the Bears. We'll see what happens with Fields this year. But it's
True.
like,
yeah,
those are your teams, and like those are the teams I worry about for the Patriots. And I think Green Bay is also, they struggled defending the run last year against Green Bay, so it might just be something about how good that offensive line is, and that's the other thing. Yeah, the Packers are good on the offensive line. So it's not. Didn't love what I saw tonight, but I'm not like hitting a panic button or anything yet.
Yeah, I agree. And the other part of it is that we haven't seen Marte Mapu out there yet, which I think was the right decision this week because he just took the red jersey off. Give him a few days of practice, which they gave him, but then give him some extra time and go from there. I think that makes sense. I just, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I do think that, it's a situation where the defense is still going to be a top 10 defense. And yes, the running, like they struggle against the run sometimes, but sometimes I wonder, like, and they struggled against the run against Green Bay last year. Remember last year during the regular season, they struggled against Green Bay. So Green Bay is just a good running team, and that's one of those things. So
they're good at it. So and I mean, you're not going to win nobody expects this team to win every game. Like, I think the goal, maybe this is something we should also answer in a podcast before the season starts, what we would consider success to be for the New England Patriots this year. But it's not 17-0 we're bust here. There's going to be some games where the defense doesn't get it done, and even the best defenses of all time have games where they didn't get it done.
I agree.
I still feel really good about where this defense is, and I'm excited to see more of it.
I agree. And old man Mom asked about John Jones. John Jones, I think, sounds like he's going to be ready for week 1. That's what it sounds like. Of course, we don't know that for sure, but that's what it sounds like.
I feel like basically every player that's injured, at some point, there's been a report in the past week that's like, they'll probably be back by week 1.
Right.
And I don't really know what to make of that. I also wonder if guys are banged up, and Bill's like, hey, you're making the roster anyway. Just sit out. We'll get you in later.
Yeah, we don't need you.
Rest up.
Yeah. I agree. But we'll see. And of course, there's no way to know if those guys can be ready or not. But that's what it sounds like, at least,
Unfortunately, we're not in the building. The only guys that really know are the players and coaches, training staff.
Exactly.
So we're going to have some degree of patience there. And, that's why it's a good thing that they used the first 3 picks on defense. It gives you a little more depth while you're figuring out these injuries. And the same thing goes for the offensive line. You got guys hurt. You used 3 different picks on the offensive line.
Agreed.
And Thornton's hurt. He used 2 picks on wide receiver. These spots where guys are hurt, they picked guys. So time for the rookies to help you out. It's asking a lot, but you're going to ask for other guys.
That's what they got to do.
Yeah. Side note, I don't know how much more you want to talk defense, but special teams.
Yes. So I think we're done with. Yeah.
The kicking stuff to me is so weird because, like, if this is the Chad Ryland era, if that's what we're in now, why is Nick Folk still getting so many kicks? And like, you would think they'd go out there and say, like, Chad Ryland is just, we have him take all the kicks because we want him to be ready and everything, and that's not what's going on to a certain extent. Same with Behringer and Waitman in the punting competition, and like, I don't know,
right? It's weird. It's real weird.
They're not going to keep 2 kickers, but at the same time, if there was ever a coach that was going to keep 2 kickers, it would be Bill Belichick. And also, the whole, like, put Nick Folk on the practice squad, and then we'll activate him week 1, and we'll have 2 kickers, and one will do kickoffs and long field goals, and the other one will do short field goals, and we're going to do that for a couple weeks. It's like totally something he would do.
100%. I just, I don't know. To me, it doesn't make sense, and you traded up for Chad Ryland. You traded up for him.
And he's looked fine. Like, from what we've seen, there haven't been any issues. All the reports from camp are that he's, hitting about as much as Folk does, and he has a longer leg. And it's like, that's That's the
Right.
go-ahead as far as I'm concerned. So maybe we're reading too much into this, and maybe they're letting folk kick so they can trade him or let him prove he still has value to other teams because they've seen enough from Ryland in the building that they feel good. I don't know, but
Yeah, it's strange. Yeah, they had full kick, the field goal, and one of the extra points, and then he kicked the other extra point. Right? No
and
field
I'm
goals. The Patriots didn't kick any field goals. The
no, they had him take 2 of
the
3 extra
Packers kicked the
points.
field goals. I think full kick 2 and Round kicked the other one, right?
Right.
So that's right.
Yeah.
They were gonna kick the field goal and they went 4 on 4th down. That's right. So
It's
it's
weird
just
stuff.
bizarre. It doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense. Now they're
Yeah,
doing the
so-
same thing in punter, but they gave Behringer 2 punts. He absolutely boomed 2 punts,
So good.
both over 60 yards with almost 5 seconds of hang time. And then Waitman had a nice punt and pin the Packers deep with inside the
That was a
20
nice
yard
one.
line. So I think that's another one where it's like, all right, we're not going to give you the job yet, kid. Right. And I think that could be part of it. It's like, hey, we're not giving you the job yet, kid. Like, this isn't
Yeah.
your job yet. This guy's still here. He's a veteran. We're going to, so,
Well,
and I don't know
yeah.
if anyone's going to actually trade for Nick Folk, but like, even if no one's going to trade for him, it's, hey, we love you. We appreciate you. We want you to prove to other teams that you're still good enough. So when we cut you, if they're looking for a guy, it could be you,
Well, and it could also be they just want some internal pressure on the guys they drafted to make them earn it.
That's
And
true too. Yeah.
they're going to cut down a cut down day, and then those guys are going to get all the reps for the 10 days or 13
Right.
days or whatever that distance is between it. And that's enough, and they'll be good to go for opening day. So it's a weird situation, but that's normal for the Patriots.
Yeah,
Wouldn't
exactly.
shock me to see 2 kickers, but I put that in like the less than a 5% chance of it happening, but not a 0% chance.
But not a non-zero
Right.
chance,
Yeah.
as they would say,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
they said in Oppenheimer.
Yeah. And one last note, the guy we didn't talk about on here because he doesn't really fit neatly into any of the position groups we talked about, and that's Malik Cunningham.
Yeah.
Who is a kick returner, gunner, wide receiver, and quarterback.
Yeah. So that's about sums it up. Yeah.
I don't think he's making the roster. I think they can get him to the practice squad. That's my thing, is that teams who are cutting down rosters aren't going to say, hey, we like the 53 we have, but we're going to cut one of these guys to add a project quarterback who's in the middle of converting to be a receiver who also plays special teams. I don't think teams are rushing out to make sure they get that guy, and I think they can get him to the practice squad if that's what they feel best. And him not playing any quarterback tonight in a shortened game probably helps the case of that happening.
I would agree with you. And I wonder what the Patriots will do with him. I think it'll be I think we'll see a lot of what the Patriots think this week, because if they don't let him play in the joint practices, and if they don't have him play quarterback at all on Friday night, I think that you look at it and say, that's interesting. It's interesting that, that they didn't let him play quarterback anywhere, didn't get it on film. So like those are some of the things where you look at it and say like, okay, maybe they are trying to keep him, maybe they're worried about that. So, and again, I'm not really sure. I think he's a guy that's an electric type of guy. I don't know where he fits on the team. I don't know if you're going to do anything, but like, for me personally, I look at it and say, all right, well, if it's not Malik Cunningham, first of all, Jerry asked the question that I was going to ask, which is who makes it for the UDFA streak, number one. And then number two, if, and I still think you could make it as a quarterback. I still think you could have him as your third quarterback. Now, would they keep 3 quarterbacks? I don't know. But if you could have him as he's your quarterback, and we talked about this on the podcast this week, like he's your third string quarterback and you get to carry an extra guy because he is your, emergency quarterback through the week. So, and I don't know, but that's just, excuse me. It's 1 a.m. I'm yawning over here, but
the 1 a.m. oil over here.
but that's one of the things that I wonder is like, if he makes the roster, where is it? Because you're not going to keep 7 wide receivers, like, and he's not ready to be an NFL wide receiver just yet. But I mean, someone might throw him on the roster to be a backup quarterback. I don't know, but you might look
Yeah.
at it and say, "Hey, there's a backup quarterback." Right. And if Zappy doesn't play well enough, could they keep him here as a backup quarterback? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's one of those things. I
Yeah.
don't think they would, because they're using him at too many other positions. They're clearly not sold him at quarterback,
And he was an undrafted free agent for a reason. Like, every team in the NFL passed on Cunningham multiple times.
Right.
And clearly he was like a highly sought after undrafted free agent, but like that's still, he didn't get drafted for a reason. He's in the middle of switching positions. Teams didn't love him. I don't think he's the type of guy that gets picked up unless you have a plan for him, but there's no reason for another team to have a plan for him. So I think he probably hangs around New England in one form or another. I'm in the middle. I'm going to have my roster projection dropping in the morning. I don't have an undrafted free agent on it. Which is kind of wild, but it's also, they drafted so many players this year, and that makes it hard. They drafted 2 receivers. I got both of them making it. They drafted 3 offensive linemen. I got all of them making it. You have Keanu White, who's going to be on the roster. They drafted a linebacker who's going to make it. There's a corner who's going to make it, and two special teamers who are going to make it, plus Amir Speed, who I actually have as the last guy on my roster right now, is a special teamer and a corner, and a personal protector who does a lot on their punt teams. And it's like, that's a lot of rookies making it. In another year, Amir Speed's probably your undrafted free agent who makes it as a special teamer. He just got drafted in the 7th round this year, 6th round, or whenever it was they picked him.
Yeah. And Old Man Mob asked about, what's the opinion that we have on Pat McAfee saying what he said. And Pat McAfee did say what he said. But this is, NFL media lives and thrives off of overreaction. It's an overreaction to one series in the 4th quarter of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's
What did
great.
McAfee say? I kind of tuned him out, to be honest.
He was like, he was like, I can't believe no one drafted him. That's crazy. He's better than, this, and he's already shown that he can do this and blah, 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 and all this other stuff. And I'm like, okay, whatever, dude. But like, he's not gonna be there, by the way, without Andrews is making the roster. Sorry. Like, that's all the rookies make it, but Andrews, come on. Andrews is a 4th round pick.
They've never cut somebody in the 4th round. If
he's there in
the 4th round or higher, you make the roster.
He's their backup center. He's there. Yeah. He is. They're going to have already. And not only that, but he is the guy that's going to take over for David Andrews when he retires. Like, that's going to happen.
That's the plan. Yeah. Also, the amount of money that Cunningham makes, I think, is kind of not relevant to the discussion, because like him making more than 6th and 7th rounders and 5th rounders, the 5th, 6th, and 7th rounders all have certain amounts of money that they are going to make in the CBA. They don't have that around undrafted free agents. So all it means is that at least one other team, and probably a couple other teams, wanted Cunningham. But you know who else they've given a lot of money to? They give a ton of money to like Andrew Beck, who has hung around in the league as a backup tight end, but did not make the Patriots. The amount of money you get paid as an undrafted free agent is really more a reflection of how much interest there was in you than how good you are. And obviously, like, there's some correlation between those two things, but just because you get paid a lot doesn't really tell me anything other than that before we had you in the building, we thought you might be good.
Correct. I mean, they're going to cut guys. They're going to cut guys this year that are making more than Malik Cunningham. So that's,
And they're paying that money to Cunningham, I think, regardless of what happens. So the amount that they're paying him, I think, almost doesn't even factor. Like, that money is in the past. Now.
Yeah.
There's no real reason to factor that into whether or not he makes the team.
Correct. All right. I think it's a good place than any to wrap it up. We're over an hour here, past 1 a.m. Eastern time.
Trivia time?
I
got a question.
Trivia? All right. Okay. Yeah. All right. I
got a fun one. I think you'll like this.
By the way, who won last week?
So the question last week was where is it? Before Marte Mapu was drafted, which former Patriots player in the 21st century played at Sacramento State? The answer was Lonnie Paxton. And my dad, for the second question in a row, got it right. I promise you. There's no cheating going on. My dad doesn't even usually tune into the shows. He just he nailed that one. He heard your hint, Pat, and went with that. So that was last week's question. As always, for anybody who's new to this, we ask a trivia question at the end of every episode. First person to get it in the live chat or the comments after, or to hit us up on Twitter with the answer to the question, it's going to get entered into a drawing for something from the Pat's Pro Shop. We're going to do this a couple times this year. And Pat, we're going to have a bonus on this week's question. If the person who gets it right gets the bonus part right, we're going to give him a second entry for it.
Or her. Love it.
Yeah. Something a little fun. So this week's, and you're going to, before you answer, you probably want to hear the bonus part. So you can submit that too. So the question, in what season did the Patriots win their lone regular season game at Lambeau Field? The only win they have there in the team's history. And you get a bonus entry if you can name one Patriot who scored a touchdown, who went into the end zone in that game.
Ooh-wee, that's a good question.
Yeah. And yeah, I was gonna say something, but I don't want to spoil this answer at all. So
nope.
I'll say it off stream.
I like it.
Yeah. But do you know this answer?
Nope.
No?
I'm trying to think. I'm just trying to do math in my head. Some quick math in my head, right? I'm thinking about last year was 2022. So could check out.
And
I'm just trying to think. Yeah.
I will say if you submitted an answer and you want to be in the if you want to be eligible for the bonus, definitely submit your answer for the bonus either in your response or like right after. If you want to throw a guess in there for one of the players who scored a touchdown. So
yes, I like it.
Yeah. So we'll be back at some point this week, Pat. Do we know when we're going to be back?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think probably Tuesday night or even Wednesday night. I think more likely probably Wednesday night. I'm on vacation in New Hampshire, as you might be able to see. I have the loft. I'm up in a loft right here, traveling with my children and my parents and my sister and her husband, all staying in this one cool house that has all sorts of like cool Star Wars stuff. They got like, I'm sitting over here next to like a big like Atari game with like that's got a whole thing on it. It's got a Star Wars pinball machine downstairs. It's got all sorts of stuff. So it's pretty cool. But so we're gonna be traveling for a few days, so I'm not 100% sure when I'll be around, but we'll get something done. We'll get something done early this week, maybe even Wednesday after Wednesday night, because they have joint practices Wednesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That'll be after both joint practices. I think that might make sense. So maybe we'll do Wednesday night.
That works for me. Yeah. One last thing before I sign off.
Yes.
You guys have seen what's gone on in Hawaii, but Jelani Tavai from Hawaii, he has a link in his Instagram bio for anybody who's interested in donating to help out, people who are struggling out there. So if you have the money, please donate what you can. If you don't, go ahead and share that with somebody who can, and go show some. We'll have Patriot Nation show some love. Yeah,
exactly. Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Thank you to the chat. As always, we appreciate you guys blowing up the chat, having conversations, asking good questions, making good statements. And, just overall, to me, it makes it so much more fun doing this because we're able to interact with you guys and we appreciate it. So thank you. I appreciate it. And we'll talk to you later on this week.